So we just left 4th and 5th grade classrooms, and there was a mixture of mathematics, and then they were getting ready to transition into a reading task, but we didn't get to stay for that part. In the 4th and 5th grade classes, what I observed were rigorous tasks that asked students to engage in complex thinking, and then they also received excellent feedback from both the teachers and the peers, and that's what stood out. They got feedback from the teacher, but there was also constant conversation and constant verification with the learners. For example, the angles activity, the ticket in activity, in all cases they were receiving feedback from their teachers as well as their peers. And so the feedback was incredible, given that it doubles the rate of learning. And so that's an absolute glow for those classrooms. In terms of the task, what stood out to me was the level of social interaction, the level of novelty in the class, the personal response, the opportunity to bring a person's personal interest to the conversation. They got to talk about different strategies. They got to decide how they wanted to give feedback to their neighbors. There was music. In general, it was a highly engaging environment, and in most cases, higher order, especially with the measurement of the angles. They went from measuring acute angles to right angles to obtuse angles, which required a very different conversation based on where the students claimed they were measuring their angles, and gave room for feedback. An area that might be worth investigating is how learners are presented with the success criteria and learning intention. In all of the classrooms it was, today we're learning so that we can, I'll know I have it when. That's perfect. That was excellent, and the learners knew what they were up to. My only suggestion would be to change the language of some of those. For example, today we are learning should be the big idea. Today we are learning to measure angles. Today we are learning to strategize about multi-term problems. It's the big idea. The so that I can is the relevancy behind it. So let's use the angles, for example. Today we are measuring angles so that I can determine the degree value or the degrees of the angle and classify it as acute, obtuse, or right. I'll know I have it when I can use a protractor to measure an angle, when I can identify where an individual needs to make changes to their angles. In other words, that's a clear, linear progression in the learning. What we saw in some cases was the 80%. They assigned a value to the accuracy. I'll know I have it when I can do it with 80% accuracy. And I would just caution against that, because if I'm the learner that gets 70%, but the classroom gets 80%, the message, although inadvertently sent to the student, your score doesn't matter. Save the 80% for PLCs, data teams, and our conversations as professionals. Keep that away from the students. We want the students to achieve it 100%, and we want them to believe that we believe they can do it at 100%. Those were fun classrooms. They were hard to leave. They're engaging, they're exciting, the learners are all over it. There's a lot going on in 4th and 5th grade.
Awesome.